Hello. Today's episode is brought to you by our favorite sponsor, sunsetlakesabade.com. Use the code LEFTISBEST. You get 20% off. 20% off some of the best Sabade products in the world. It's grown without pesticides. They use integrated pest management. They've got great business practices and farming practices. They practice regenerative farming to maintain the quality of their soil. They pay $20 minimum wage during the harvest and mostly employee owned after that. They've got great products. They've got tinctures that help you sleep, tinctures that help you relax, tinctures that help your pets relax. They've got gummies that do all of what I just said, and some gummies with some THC that make you a little goofier, as it were. They also have a lifted tea, which is fantastic. And it's the only way that we get Brian to keep showing up in the office. We just dangle a can. Yeah.
I need it, baby. Come on, just one more can.
They have lotions and salves. They have smokables that you can mix with other smokables or just smoke on their own. They've got pre-rolls and keef and flour. They've got Sabade fudge. Great gift. Sabade coffee, also a great gift. In fact, all of their products make great gifts for people. You can find them all at sunsetlakesabade.com. Use the code LEFTISBEST. You get 20% off. Again, this is a great company. They have donated tens of thousands of dollars to things like Strike Relief Fund and Planned Parenthood and carceral reform and refugee resettlement and food pantries. They just gave $5,000 to the Vermont Food Pantry. Just check them out. You're going to love it. Left is best. 20% off. sunsetlakesabade.com. Now time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Jasper, Nathaniel, publisher of the Infinite Jazz Substack, updates from his trip to the West Bank, reporting there. Also on the program today, Pete Hegseth, weaving in and out of the responsibility for the Caribbean, either war crimes or just crimes. Special election in Tennessee's 7th congressional district could bring a new crop of Republican resignations.
Inshallah.
DHS Chief Kristi Noem recommending a wide travel ban on incoming foreign visitors. Starbucks to pay nearly $40 million fine over New York City labor law violations as the Starbucks union strike continues and the boycott continues.
And Bernie and Zoran joined them on the picket line yesterday. Love to see it.
Trump administration fires almost 30% of the New York City-based immigration judges. Costco sues the Trump administration over tariffs. New report, U.S. is funding dramatically fewer grants in every area of science and medicine. Meanwhile, U.S. manufacturing activity contracts for the 9th month in a row. And lastly, the heartwarming story of RFK Jr.'s new top advisor, who's also a COVID denier. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Somebody's asking if there's a color filter on the thing. I guess we did not necessarily nail it. We're playing around with the...
We kind of wanted this to look like a CSI episode, like kind of procedural.
Yeah, what happened? It's so much more vibrant than it was like when we did this in the press.
Because we were trying to figure out a way to get us to match. Obviously, my camera settings are perfect. For some reason, Sam's...
I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
But you know what?
I still think it looks better than it did yesterday.
What are you going to do, folks? I mean, we've been doing this show now for 15 years. We like to mix it up a little bit.
Haven't quite dialed it in.
Yeah.
Give us time.
Yeah. This doesn't happen overnight.
The webcams, which is what we are using for people that don't realize, can be finicky.
Yeah.
They're nice webcams.
Okay.
No,
Well, as opposed to what? Oh, you mean
like a regular camera, right? Which I think most shows use, but
most shows.
that's okay.
Whatever.
Most shows aren't this show.
That's correct.
What is this?
Exactly. Okay. Yes, I have heard of a ludicrous apple. All right, let's move on.
Don't derail the show right now, folks.
Yeah, folks, just don't tempt me with
Apple
All right,
stuff
let's
after
start with
1:30.
this. This is a big deal that's happening in Tennessee today, Tennessee's 7th, with Afton Bain. At one point, we tried to get her on the show. That we had a scheduling problem, so it didn't happen. But as I was saying to Brian earlier this morning, I said, if there's anybody who watches this show or listens to this show who lives in Tennessee's 7th district and you're not voting today, you need us to remind you, you're fired. You're not stop watching the show because you just now you're just sucking the life force out of us. And we don't want that. I'm assuming that everybody's going to. This is we should say Donald Trump won this district by 22 points in 2024. If this is even close, you got to start thinking about the calculation that Republican congresspeople are going to be making if they look at this and they think, if Donald Trump won my district by less than 22 points, am I going to be able to get reelected? How difficult is this going to be? And how much effort am I going to put in over the course of the next year when I know I'm going to end up in the minority? That's what the relevance of this is. Now, of course, there's other numbers associated with it, like it's, the Democrats pick up one more seat. It's going to tighten things. But here is Afton Bain drawing a contrast between her gathering in Franklin, Tennessee, and her opponent, Van Epps's, a little bit more exclusive event.
Yeah, this made by the Tennessee Holler.
What's your response to all of that?
Yeah, I mean, the barrage of negative attacks is because they don't have a plan to address the affordability crisis we are dealing with. I mean, there's no plan. And so unless you have a plan to make healthcare more affordable, you're coming after me. And the voters hear that. I mean, we have heard from voters all across the district that they're like, she's got a plan. We know what she stands for. She hasn't gone negative. All she's been talking about is how she's going to provide for Tennessee families. And more importantly, I just want to draw a contrast to this moment versus my opponent's rally, in which it was behind pearly white gates of a Williamson County mega mansion, away from the people and next to the power brokers and puppet masters. And it just shows how he's going to govern, which is, I'm one I've been someone who's been knocking doors every day, every week for the past 9 months, talking to voters, and he is behind closed doors, and that is how he'll govern. And I think Tennesseans are fed up with leadership that doesn't deliver.
I like what she's centered her campaign around: feed kids, fix roads, fund hospitals. That's been like a slogan that she's deployed. And it's quite the contrast to the guy behind the gates there, who I think has doubled what Bain has fundraised, and is beholden to the billionaires and to Donald Trump, basically.
Club for Growth is getting really heavily involved in this race.
Well, just the fact that they're having to bring this many people in and this much money in is indicative of how important this race is to them, not just in terms of like the direct first order question of whether this specific district is represented by a Democrat or a Republican, or what the numbers are in the House. It is what it's going to do to Republican House members in terms of demoralizing them. Let's listen to Bain making her. Well, let's get a sense of that. This is number 5. This is Donald Trump and Mike Johnson sort of rallying. This is both sort of rallying. I mean,
I can't
I've done
confirm
this.
that he was
Listen.
on a golf cart when he called in.
No, he might have been on the toilet, be fair.
Well, I was having my annual physical for the 5th time in 4 months.
From inside the MRI machine.
Exactly.
You can tell he really cares
Guess
about
where I'm
this.
calling you from, Mike? Here's Mike
Beep.
Johnson. He's on the ground. Now, honestly, I mean, if you had said to somebody a year ago, will Mike Johnson have to travel to Tennessee to campaign in a plus 22 Donald Trump district if the Republican is out fundraising the Democrat by a 2-to-1 margin? I think most people would say, are you serious? But here we are.
Remember, he's got a majority of 3. A majority of 3. And there aren't many people can do that, but we have to win this seat. We've gotten you the largest tax cuts in history, and the new bill, the great big beautiful bill, kicks in, as you know, on January 1st. Hasn't even kicked in yet. And then you have no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. If you borrow money to buy
Can you just pause it really briefly? I just want to make one point, is that Trump's 2024 campaign director, when he did that interview with Politico in the wake of Zoran's victory and like the Democrats sweeping across the country a few weeks ago, was talking about how they need to refocus on affordability and cost of living and not just taxes. And you see how they have nothing to address that. Trump is returning to the tax cuts. That this is not addressing the cost of living. That like, okay, perhaps people will have a few $100s more because of tax cuts, or a few $1,000s more if you're richer. But they're not addressing people where they are, and I think that that's a real vulnerability here.
I also, the way this sounds, I am not convinced that first of all, it sounds almost like AI.
Yeah.
But I think the way you couldn't train an AI to sort of like backtrack in the way that he does.
Still working on the weave.
Exactly. But I'm also would not be surprised if he didn't just record this and they played the recording back through the phone to make sure that he didn't go sideways during this. Go ahead.
Security, no tax on overtime. If you borrow money to buy a car, you get a deduction that's never happened before. All these things kick in on January 1st. A lot of people don't know. They said, oh, they already kicked in. I said, no, it doesn't start until January 1st. So that was the first date. I just want to thank everybody. I love Tennessee, one of my all-time favorite places. And Tennessee, I guess, loves me because we've won by the biggest margins anybody's ever won by, so that's cool. But if you can go, Matt Van Epps, he's a winner. He's going to be great. Don't let this stuff fool you. The Democrats are spending a fortune, and we don't want people that want to raise your taxes. She wants to raise your taxes on top of everything else. But she said 2 things above all else that bothered me. Number 1, she hates Christianity. Number 2, she hates country music. How the hell can you elect a person like that? So I just want to give my total support, and he's had it right from the beginning, to Matt Van Epps. He's going to be a fantastic congressman. He's going to represent you so well, and we'll keep our agenda going. And I'm going to make a call tonight about 7 or 8 o'clock. I'm doing a tele-rally for him tonight. So if anybody wants to listen, basically I'll be saying the same things I just said.
Okay.
Okay, whatever. I mean, they're nervous about this. Donald Trump, he's working overtime. He's making 2 phone calls. That's quite a bit.
Basically, I'll be saying the same thing I just said. It might be the same recording.
Exactly. And I mean, also keep this in mind. There is no direct, immediate ability for him to monetize this. So he's serious about this. The fact that he would do this where there's no direct money flowing into his pockets. Here is Afton Bain on News Nation making her final pitch.
I got my start as a healthcare community organizer in the state of Tennessee, fighting to preserve Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. So as the next congresswoman for the 7th Congressional District, I'll ensure those subsidies remain for the ACA. 2, I'll restore funding for Medicaid, which is a lifeline for so many rural hospitals in the district. And 3, roll back tariffs, which are squeezing and bankrupting Tennessee farmers right now.
So what is your final pitch to voters? They're casting their ballots today. How would you work with or challenge Speaker Mike Johnson at the same time?
I'm someone who cannot be bought or sold by special interests. I represent the interests of the constituents of the 7th Congressional District. And as I've said on the campaign, if you are upset about the chaos of Washington and the cost of living, then I'm your candidate. And I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what political party you belong to. I welcome you with open arms. Come to our side and vote for change.
Better pitch than, Trump's closing one. She hates country music. When we're talking about
It's the 2 C's, Christianity and country music.
the fact that people are feeling the implications of like the economy in such an acute way, the way that has flipped now that Trump is back in office and the Democrats are able to make this case is important because, they have nothing to offer on that. Even when he talks about the tax cuts from the big ugly ass bill, that bill is deeply unpopular as well.
Yeah, I mean, you would imagine a place where he was 22 plus, there's a lot of Trump fans, and that's what they're hoping to rally. But again, if this election is close, if it's within 6 or 7 points, you're talking that Republican congressmen around the country are, and you've got to make allowance for the fact this is a special election. Democrats may be more tuned in than Republicans, and you would expect that to even out a little bit in the midterms. But making up a 15 point or 15 points of a deficit when you have half the money, there's going to be Republican congressmen, mostly, let's be honest, mostly congressmen. Yeah. It's Republicans that are going to say it's just not worth it. It's exhausting to run for office. I can go out and get a corporate job and use my connections to drain money from the coffers of the government while the getting's good. And I would not be surprised if she is within 5 points that we don't hear at least a couple more resignations, if not, or I should say retirements, if not another resignation, because people are just not going to want to deal with this, losing their seat. And then even if they win, they get into the minority. All right. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Jasper Nathaniel, publisher of Infinite Jazz on Substack, about follow-up on what has happened since he has been returned from the West Bank. First, a couple words from our sponsors. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches and doxing are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. I've been using Delete Me way before they became sponsors on this program. Obviously, it was more than 10 years ago now, I think, that I started using it because I didn't want a lot of my public information floating around out there. And Delete Me does a great job with it. All you got to do is you give them your email address and you tell them basically all the stuff that you want to get deleted. And they do this on an ongoing basis. They send you regular updates as to what they've gotten rid of, what they found, where, and what they're doing about it. And why is this important for people who don't do a show like this, aside from, wanting to maintain some privacy? Data brokers, this is who Delete Me gets your stuff removed from, profit off your data. Your data is a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy your private details, and that can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, and harassment. But Delete Me takes care of all of that. What they'll do is they'll combine stuff that they buy on the dark web with stuff that they can buy from data brokers. They can threaten taking over your identity, or they can know enough about you from these data brokers. They send you an email and, trick you into a phishing attempt. It's also a great thing to do, frankly, for your parents, maybe, who may not be as savvy about these things. What do data brokers do? Your name, contact info, social security number, home address, even information about your families can be compiled by data brokers and sold online. New York Times Wirecutter has named Delete Me their top pick for data removal services. Delete Me, like I say, sends you regular personalized privacy reports showing what they found, where they found it, and what they removed. It is not, Delete Me is not just a one-time service. It's always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing personal information. I want to thank Delete Me for sponsoring the Majority Report. Take control of your data. Keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/majority. Use the promo code majority at checkout. Only way to get 20% off, go to joindeleteme.com/majority. Enter code majority at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/majority. Code is majority. We'll put a link to that in the podcast and YouTube description. Also, sponsoring the program today, service that I've now used probably, for 6-7 years. They advertised with us years ago, and I was really impressed with it. You know that there have been massive cuts to foreign aid. It's all been in the headlines. They have raised real concerns about people's well-being in some of the world's poorest communities. I have seen numbers ranging from in the hundreds of thousands already who have been hurt or died because of these cuts, and that it ranges into the millions over the course of the next 10 years. Well, GiveWell doesn't claim to have all the answers, but its team of researchers are analyzing the impact of foreign aid funding cuts in real time. They are identifying highly cost-effective ways to save and improve lives, and they're sharing what they're learning for free so that everyone can have a big impact. GiveWell has spent 18 years researching global health and poverty alleviation. They only direct funding to the highest impact opportunities that they've found. Over 150,000 donors have already trusted GiveWell to direct more than $2.5 billion with a B, dollars. Rigorous evidence suggests these donations will save over 300,000 lives and improve the lives of millions more. You can find all of their research and recommendations on their site for free. And thanks to donors who chose to sponsor their research, GiveWell does not take a single dollar cut from your tax-deductible donations to their recommended funds. I have found a lot of great charities over the years from GiveWell. That's where we found Give Directly. They change year to year as to what they are focusing on, all based on research. They are completely transparent. They have a vertical with everything they've gotten wrong over the course of those 18 years. It's pretty sniggly stuff, but they are very, very transparent about it. It's just a great way to get a sense that the dollar you're giving is doing as much and having as much impact as possible this time of year. If this is your first gift through GiveWell, you can have your donation matched up to $100. That's before the end of this year or as long as matching funds last. To claim your match, go to givewell.org, pick podcast, and enter a Majority Report at checkout. Make sure they know you heard about GiveWell from the Majority Report, and you will get your donation matched. Again, that's givewell.org. Enter Majority Report to donate or find out more. Check it out, givewell.org. And lastly, obviously, we're getting very close to a gift-giving time. Get it done. Do it now. And here's how you can do it. And this is the perfect gift for your parents, for your brother, your sister, your uncles, your aunts, your cousins, your kids. It is Aura Frames. It is so easy to wrap this up and get your gift giving done now, and basically be a hero. I have given Aura Frames as a gift, both to my parents, my girlfriend's parents, my my mother loved her frame before she would pass. By the end, she was talking to it, but that was because there's videos of the kids, and you can actually, so there's audio too. But I gave an Aura frame last year for Christmas to my girlfriend's family, and they ended up buying like 5 more. All the kids, they got a bunch of kids in that family. They all have the app. It's super easy to use. You have your app. You can put the photos on the app. You take the photos, and then you just send it. And you can do all this without even ever seeing the frame. So you can preload pictures onto a gift frame, send it. When they open it up and they plug it in, they're going to see the pictures. For a limited time, you can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off of Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using the promo code majority at checkout. That's AURA frames, auraframes.com. Promo code majority. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and the frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. You want to do this. Believe me, great gift. And it's one that keeps giving throughout the year. They're going to love it. Auraframes.com. All of our ads, the links will be in the podcast and YouTube description. And a reminder, it's your support that keeps this show going. If you want the free show, free of ads, become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. All right, quick break. Jasper, Nathaniel. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. I want to welcome back to the program Jasper Nathaniel. He's the publisher of Infinite Jazz on Substack. Folks, if you subscribe to any Substack, you do yourself a favor, subscribe to Jasper's. The firsthand accounts of reporting in the West Bank, for whatever reason, we just don't see many journalists go into the West Bank and actually get on the ground reporting. Jasper has done that. Jasper, welcome back to the program. We spoke to you when you came back, and we showed some video of that you took when you went out to the olive groves and basically were attacked by settlers. And on Thanksgiving, there was some developments in that. In fact, there was developments in 2 stories that you were pursuing on Thanksgiving. But welcome to the show. Tell us what happened on Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. Thanksgiving was a wonderful day. Basically, I woke up to a million text messages because the settler who I documented clubbing the Palestinian grandmother, who before that had sort of led a chase against me and some other Palestinian farmers, he'd been arrested maybe 2 weeks earlier, but it was, one of these things where it was unclear if it was just going to be a token arrest and he was just going to get sort of, let out immediately. But on Thanksgiving morning, he was indicted on terror charges in Israel. And, that it still has to go to trial, obviously, but it's a sign at least that they're at least going to try to make an example of this one guy. And, I want to be clear that I'm not under any illusion that, Israel is going to rein in its settlers that it vehemently backs and arms and supports. But, as I keep saying, the fact that they have responded to this international pressure and outrage over this one attack to the point that they're actually bringing terror charges against him, I think is a good indication that, pressure is working. And the more you document these things, the more they are willing to react. So that was the first thing that happened.
Well, let's stop with that one first. What can you tell us about terror charges? Like, where on the spectrum of charges, how serious is it that they charged him with terror charges as opposed to like assault or I don't know. I mean, it seems to me there's a range of things they could have charged him with, and I wonder if there's anything to be read into those charges.
I mean, it's equivalent to like a hate crime charge. So I think the specific, it's like race-based violent crime, something to that effect. I mean, it is serious. Oftentimes they will arrest these guys and charge them with like disorderly conduct or, some version of like unlawful gathering or rioting or something. This is, it's a serious charge. He could do real time. It doesn't mean that he will. It doesn't mean that he'll be found guilty or that, he won't plead to lesser charges or something like that. But it's serious. There's no way around it. I mean, they are, and I should say that the Israeli authorities who have been in touch with me about it, who I have conversed with to some extent, I've basically said to them repeatedly that I don't believe you that you're serious about this, and sort of challenged them, and they kept saying just watch, and they brought a serious charge against him. Again, I want to sort of just rein it in a little bit, because there's an entire terror network in Termasaya, in this town where the attack took place. So there's a known leader of the violent outpost. The guy who was arrested is basically a foot soldier. So, they have not, this is equivalent to the, arresting, a hitman in the mafia, but not going after the actual mob family or the boss or anything. So it's not, in my opinion, a systematic effort to take out the terror network. But again, it's a serious charge against a violent settler, which is extraordinarily rare.
Okay, and let's talk about the second thing that happened on Thanksgiving. This is quite a morning for you.
Yeah, so Mohammed Ibrahim, the 16-year-old Palestinian-American kid who he's from Florida, and his family sort of goes back and forth between Florida and the West Bank. He was arrested, or abducted, I should say, in February from his home in a town called Al-Mazrah al-Sharqiyya. I should also say this is the first cousin of Saifullah Musalet, who's a 20-year-old Palestinian-American who was beaten to death by settlers in July. So Mohammed has been basically wasting away in Israeli military detention since February. He's been starved, he's been beaten, he contracted scabies, he's been barred from speaking to his own family for over 9 months. On Thanksgiving Day, he was released into his father, who went to pick him up, and they brought him to the hospital. I mean, I don't know if you've seen photos or videos, but he's extremely gaunt. He looks like he hasn't seen the sun in 9 months, and he's lost a lot of weight, and he's still got scabies, but he's free. And family is ecstatic. And then actually what happened next, in my mind, is just as exciting. So basically, I'll get into the details of what happened. Basically, I mean, there's been an effort for 9.5 months to get the U.S. government to support freeing, an American child, which one would think is the job of the American government.
And what ostensibly was he being held for?
Oh yeah, he was being accused of throwing a stone. So basically, him and 3 other Palestinian kids who are not American, were accused of throwing stones at cars. Mohammed was never even accused of hitting a car. He was just accused of literally throwing a stone. And he denied it, and then eventually he allegedly confessed to it. He then said in a sworn affidavit that he was beaten on the way to the military detention center when he was abducted at 3 a.m. He was beaten once he got there, and then as he was being interrogated, they threatened to beat him again if he didn't confess. So he confessed under duress, which is, entirely consistent with testimony and reporting from what's happening inside these military detention centers. So the charge was that he threw a stone. And basically, the U.S. government just completely ignored it for months and months and months. The story didn't even break until July, 5 months after he was abducted. And it broke when a great reporter named Joseph Gedeon with The Guardian was reporting on the murder of Saifullah. And as he was talking to the family, they mentioned that Saifullah's first cousin, literally their mothers or sisters, had been in military detention for months, and nobody had even known about this yet.
So, okay, they charge him with throwing a stone, and then that's it? There's no trial over the throwing with a stone? After 5 months at that point? They just they're like, I don't understand like how aside from, like, even if it's a valid charge of stone throwing, how there's no court case for this. 16 years old, right? This kid.
He was 15 at the time. He
15.
turned 16 in prison. Yeah, it's hard to understand. There was no trial. I mean, basically, he had a court date scheduled, and then his father showed up, and then it was delayed by 30 days. And then there was another court date scheduled, and the father showed up, and it was delayed by 30 days. And this happened over and over and over, and they could not get any information whatsoever. And the U.S. Embassy was not speaking to them, and they were barred from communicating with their son in any way. So, I mean, it was a complete black box. They had no idea what was happening. And also, like, a 17-year-old from the neighboring town who was Mohammed's cellmate dropped dead in prison in those first few months. And the family heard that a teenager from their area had died in prison. And they basically spent a whole day thinking that it was their son. So, I mean, it was torture. It was torture for them.
Where was Mohammed born?
He was born in Florida.
I mean, this is just an American kid in Florida, from Florida, who is visiting family in Palestine.
And as it turns out, the Secretary of State of the United States is a proud Florida man. And he never so much as mentioned Mohammed's name. So yes, I mean, this is an American kid. And I should say, like, when I was in the West Bank in October, I stayed with the family a couple of times, actually. And, like, not that this should, like, privilege them or make them any more deserving of security, but, like, they're Americans. Like, these are just, like, completely...
Well, it's just basic democratic representation. I mean, there should be some sort of level of trust that Americans have, that a teenage boy who is an American can't be held indefinitely for throwing a stone by our supposed greatest ally without having our government intervene. That would, I mean, that's kind of basic stuff, I would imagine, for the world superpower. But you mentioned Rubio. What's fascinating here is, we were talking a little bit about this, Chris Van Hollen has now been across these kind of two major cases. One that's, of course, the Kilmar Brego Garcia case earlier this year. But when it comes to this, he seemed to put a lot of pressure on the U.S. government and the Trump administration to free him here. What's your assessment of his role in Mohammed's release?
Yeah, so basically there was, like, there was literally no effort whatsoever from anybody in the U.S. government for the first 5-6 months of his detention. After the story broke, that's when I sort of latched onto it. I got Joseph, the reporter, connected me with the family, and I started talking with them basically every day. And it became clear pretty much right away that, for the most part, that the U.S. Embassy was not interested in helping, and that their Florida representatives were not interested in helping. Rick Scott, I'm forgetting who the other Florida senator is, she was not interested in helping. And so it was clear that, it was obviously not going to just sort of matriculate through the Israeli military criminal justice system. Like, he was just going to rot away indefinitely. So it was like, okay, this needs to be just a grassroots pressure campaign. And so I basically worked with the family to start haranguing U.S. lawmakers, which included a trip to D.C. As part of a delegation with the families of Americans who have been killed in the West Bank, including the father of Saifullah, Kamel. And what happened was, like, certain lawmakers started getting involved, the people you would expect, like Rashida Tlaib. And then Chris Van Hollen, I got to be honest, like, I didn't even know who this guy was until a year, maybe 2 years ago. And he just sort of, like, comes out of nowhere. And I have to be honest, like, he showed real moral clarity. Like, in my conversations with his staff and, just engaging with them, like, it seemed like he understood that this was the right thing to do. And so he started becoming really vocal about it. A couple other things that I should just mention. This detail, like, just absolutely cracks me up. So, or it makes me cry maybe. But so, like, the the pressure campaign builds and builds and builds. You know, I'm working with the family and a couple of organizations like CARE and some others to organize like massive phone banking to get representatives. All of it is really aimed at like trying to get representatives to call the U.S. Embassy and demand that they do something. But at a certain point, a couple of lawmakers who I can't name, who are like deep in the pockets of AIPAC, indicate that they want to help, but they need to do it secretly. They can't let it be publicly known that they are helping to free the American kid. So like these are people who ostensibly like had a sort of conscience about this and were like, we want to help, but if word gets out that we're trying to help this American kid, then we will get in trouble with AIPAC. And I have since seen some of these lawmakers getting like pilloried on social media for doing nothing to help. And they can't even come out and say, actually, we did help, because that's how afraid of AIPAC they are.
Can you say if they're Democrats?
Yes, they're Democrats.
All Democrats.
There might be one Republican too, but there's at least two. Like, it's not Schumer or Gillibrand or Goldman, and those three did absolutely nothing. And people may have seen that.
Yeah.
My mom has been sort of leading the campaign to harass those three.
I was going to say, I saw a video that was surreptitiously filmed of your mother. I hope she wasn't upset when she found out that your sister was taking of your mom calling Gillibrand's office, calling Schumer's office, calling other offices.
Yeah, and she was basically, she's been calling them every single day and sort of like leading a network of other mom friends or other friends who have been doing it too. And the message to them has basically been, just wait until I leak the call logs that shows that I've called you every single day and did nothing. So she's been shaming them. And I don't know if you saw this, but literally last night, Ryan Grimm shared that DropSite reached out to Gillibrand for comment. And somebody, I think on background maybe, or they got word somehow that Gillibrand's office said that after the video aired of my mom saying that, they then reached out to the U.S. Embassy to check in on him. So again, like this is somebody who is, refuses to help, refuses to do anything, and then they're just shamed over and over and over and over again. And finally,
here's your mom.
perhaps
Did
they do something.
we pop that up? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, there's two. It feels like there's two lessons from this. One is that it is possible to shame these people into, you need to go to extraordinary lengths to shame them to do the bare minimum for a 15-year-old American citizen who is been arrested or kidnapped. Really, there's no other word for it. Kidnapped by a foreign military. Ostensibly for the worst crime that they could come up with is throwing a rock. It's incredible that it took that much, but it's good to know that they can be shamed. But what also it's clear is that the story, and just coincidentally, there's a piece out by Ben Rhodes in the Times yesterday, who is a former Obama foreign policy advisor. It is quite clear the amount of influence that we in the United States have over what Israel does, at least within certain parameters, if there's a decision to exercise it. And what we have seen, I think, is like clearly these things show is a complete absence of willingness to exercise that leverage.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the thing that it seems like finally pushed things over the edge was that after some momentum started to build, when like Van Hollen started speaking about it pretty regularly, Merkley, Peter Welch from Vermont, and a couple others, the Israeli embassy in Washington circulated a memo that, they tried to do it in secret, but, I got a hold of it pretty much immediately from one of the lawmakers. They circulated a memo to the lawmakers who had been speaking on Muhammad's behalf, full of lies, misinformation, and omissions to basically smear Muhammad as a criminal, to deny that he was having any health issues, which we knew that he was, and to basically try to encourage them to shut up about it. And so what happened was that leaked. And then separately, Netanyahu's office finally put out a statement after they were pressured enough. And they basically, Netanyahu doubled down and said he's being charged with committing a potentially deadly crime. And so after those two things happened, me and some others in the family and some organizations started going back to these lawmakers and showing them, here are the actual medical reports that we were able to get from the prison that show that he has a severe weight loss, that show that he's contracted scabies. Here is the evidence that, contradicts everything that was said by the Israeli embassy and Netanyahu. They're trying to make you look like idiots. They're lying to you. They're manipulating you. And that then triggered a bunch of these lawmakers to then start putting in calls directly to the Israeli authorities, to the prime minister's office, to the prison system. It triggered media. ABC did a story where they asked for comment from them. So basically what happened was we caught Israel in a number of categorical lies where they had contradicted what their own prison medical records were saying, where Netanyahu was contradicting what the actual charging document said. And that had to be pointed out directly to these lawmakers, who then finally were like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. And so the reason I make that point is because, we've talked before, obviously, about I think the value of independent journalism versus mainstream journalism. This took months and months and months and months of pressure and reporting to be able to get all this stuff, to connect these dots, to find these contradictions, to then put it over to the lawmakers to force their hand. Whereas to the extent that any mainstream news outlet even covered this at all, and I should say the New York Times did not, but it's one story and then they forget about it. And there's just really, virtually no impact from that. So it took sort of relentless campaign of activists, of, independent journalists, of organizations, of the family to shame and pressure lawmakers until I think it basically became a big enough headache for them that they then started pressuring the Israeli government. It became a headache for them. And finally, with really no fanfare at all, they just sort of let him out.
Well, the rock throwing thing I just think is important to linger on for a bit because, one, there's even biblical symbolism in it too, with David v. Goliath, which obviously Israel doesn't want to think about. But they've been using this excuse to crack down on protesters or any Palestinian resistance since, I guess even prior to the first Intifada. And I didn't even realize that Israeli law treats stone throwing as a felony, has a maximum penalty of up to 20 years, which just gives people a sense of one, the asymmetry of this conflict, I say in quotes, and two, the draconian nature of Israeli law and how it's even able to implement it, right? Just given the nature, it's talked about as if these are two sovereign entities, but the fact that Israel can charge a child essentially with a felony charge because Israel controls that area or can kidnap that kid because of the illegal occupation in the West Bank says everything here.
And the kids who they pick up on rock throwing charges are known as security prisoners. That puts them in the same category as a Hamas fighter that was arrested after October 7th. They are treated under the same terror laws in Israel. They have the same conditions. Ben-Gvir oversees it. When you hear Ben-Gvir talking about starving terrorists in prison, torturing them, wanting the death penalty, that is capturing these kids who are accused of throwing stones. That's also the security prisoner designation is what Israel used to just unilaterally decide after October 7th that they were going to violate international law by barring Red Cross visits to security prisoners because it was a threat to Israeli national security. So connecting all these dots, what we're saying is kids like Mohammed and the other kids who were arrested with him, which I want to get back to in 1 second, these are treated by Israel as terrorists in the same way that a Hamas fighter would be treated and subjected to the same conditions. I want to just also make a point that I think that the reason that I really latched on to Mohammed's case and some others did in addition to just sort of the merit of it, it was that there was a chance to actually like have an influence since he's American, right? We had like some levers that we could try to pull. It was never to suggest that, the other kids rotting away in prison were any less deserving of freedom. However, what ends up happening, which is kind of an amazing part of the story, is that after he's released, the family's lawyer, they basically immediately gather the families of the 3 Palestinian non-American kids who were all friends with Muhammad, who were arrested with him, and they use the deal that Muhammad got as leverage to basically say these kids are all being accused of the same thing. Muhammad was released, and they released the other 3 kids too. So that happened, I think, the day before yesterday. So now all 4 kids are out, and there's another 356 children in Israeli military detention that we know about, probably many more, but the family and certainly the organizations and the activists behind it, and me as a journalist, plan to like keep pushing on this to raise awareness for the fact that they are treating children in these military detention as terrorists who've been accused of nothing more than throwing a stone, if they're being accused of anything at all, and to push to get all of them out.
Can you talk about the prison where he was held? I'm looking at it now. Was it Ofer prison? Is that correct, Jasper?
He was in Ofer and also Megiddo.
Okay. Because Ofer, that name rang a bell, and then I was reminded of the fact that last year that head of some division of the of Al Shifa Hospital was tortured there, if I'm not mistaken. So, was Muhammad being held amongst just all adults as a 15-year-old child in this prison that just tortured a doctor from Gaza?
Yeah, they're all in the same place. It's again like they do have prisons in Israel. This is not a regular prison. This is a military prison, military detention center. And yeah, I mean, Muhammad and children and grown-ups there are beaten and starved. I mean, the Israeli Supreme Court a couple months ago, maybe a month ago, actually ruled that the prison system was not giving enough food to their prisoners to survive. Literally ruled that it was starving them and ordered them to give them more food. And Ben-Gvir, who, as the national security minister, oversees the prison system, just basically said no thanks. And so, yes, I mean, like the conditions are barbaric. That's why they won't let the Red Cross in. It's why they won't let their families in to visit them. There's just no reason for it except for the fact that they're hiding that, or they're trying to hide that. I mean, to quote B'Tselem, which is an Israeli human rights organization, it's a network of torture camps.
Have you had the opportunity to talk with Muhammad? Like, are you going to? I would imagine, I really don't know. I'm not sure what I can imagine an experience like that as a 15, 16-year-old for 9 months in a network of torture chambers essentially would be like. But are you going to? Does he have a story to tell? Are we going to hear more about what's going on in there? I would guess there's some sensitivities in terms of like timing and protecting other people and his family and others, but what can you tell us, going forward that we can anticipate?
Yeah, I was able to FaceTime with him, and yeah, I mean, it was really great. He's like all smiles now. I mean, like I said, he looks like he's just been through hell, which he has. He was also like, when I talked to him, he was really worried about his other friends. I mean, he had just gotten home the day before, and he had left home twice. Once was to visit the grave of his first cousin, Saifullah. By the way, he didn't know that Saifullah was beaten to death while he was in prison. So he gets out of prison and immediately finds out that his first cousin, who he looked up to, he was very close with, had been beaten to death. So one of his trips was to Saifullah's grave. The other trip that he took was to go visit the families of the other prisoners and to tell them about how their children are doing, since they had heard literally nothing. The family is taking care of a few things, and then they're going to come to Florida. Then I'm going to go down there and spend some time with them. And I mean, I think there's definitely a story to tell. Like, obviously I'm not pressuring him to talk publicly because he's a kid, and he just, I think, is like, I knew it the whole time, but talking to him, I was like, yeah, this is like what it's like to talk to a child.
Right.
Like, this is a kid. Like, he wants to go play with his friends. Like, I don't even think he has a sense of like, oh, I need to tell my story to the world. I think he's more like, I want to go play soccer, and like, I want to eat my favorite food. and I want to help get my friends out, and then I want to hang out with my friends. And so, but yes, like the family certainly is committed to telling his story, not just to tell the story, but again, to raise the issue of, you know, all the child prisoners in Israeli military detention centers. But yeah, I'm going to go down to Florida as soon as they're over there, probably in a couple weeks, and we'll see what kind of story there is.
I want to touch a little bit about this. There was a protest in New York City last week, I guess it was, at an Upper East Side synagogue, where there was a program going on to essentially encourage people to make Aliyah, which is where Jews go to Israel to live. But it was also sort of like promoting areas where they could live, which is not Israel, but is occupied by Israel. And you talked about this in the context. The group is Nefesh B'Nefesh, dedicated to supporting, educating, and advising individuals and families throughout their immigration to Israel journey. But you talk about them in the context of another piece that you'd written, I guess it was now about 2 weeks ago, Good Settler, Bad Settler, which has been, you capture a dynamic in this piece that I feel like has been the conversation I've had with people who are, I mean, I don't know through the years that I would have like referred to it as supporting Zionism, but is supporting Israel and its expansionist policies. Walk us through that concept, and then we can apply it to what happened on the Upper East Side, but also in general. I think it's helpful for people at this point.
So I wrote this piece when the story of the explosion of settler violence in the West Bank during the olive harvest started to break through a little bit. Obviously I'm pretty deep in it, so I don't have like a totally clear sense, but I mean, there were stories in the Times and the Washington Post. ABC did a story. Like, it seemed like it was becoming a story that there's this problem of these violent settlers. And it reached the point where Israeli authorities, including Netanyahu, including the army chief, and even leaders in the settlement movement, were coming out and condemning the settler violence. What they all say, the way they phrase it, is condemning the fringe anarchist youth, the band of roaming violent kids who are causing problems and making all the other settlers look bad. And so there's like this real concerted effort to frame the violent settlers that people see in these viral clips, wearing masks and clubbing people and setting fires and attacking people, to frame them as an outlier that is completely disconnected from the broader settlement movement, which is respectable and peaceful and whatnot. And the piece was meant to basically demonstrate that it's all one movement, and the violent settlers are essentially the tip of the spear. And I mean, what this actually looks like, just to be really blunt, or to be really specific, the head of the army, he's one of the people who condemned these violent settlers, and this guy is, or the head of the Central Command in the West Bank, Avi Bluth. He is in charge of going after these violent settlers. He comes out and condemns them, and he says, we'll be putting the full force of the military to go out and get them. So he says that. Days later, he signs off on authorizing 22 illegal outposts to begin the process of turning that into settlements. So what that actually means, an outpost is when these violent settlers or the anarchist, fringe settlers peel off from a settlement, and they go and they like plant a flag somewhere, and they put up a tent. I know we talked about this last time, and they just like basically steal a plot of land, and they start launching attacks from there. And sometimes the military comes in and like dismantles them when there's enough pressure, but then they go right back up, and they appear to be sort of acting on their own. But then some time passes, people forget about it, and the head of the central command, the guy who was supposed to be policing these people, authorizes them, begins the process of turning them into one of the respectable settlements. And when you look closely at the relationships between the violent settlers and the activists in the settler community and the leaders of the, ostensibly respectable settlement movement, they're working very closely to basically map out the West Bank, figure out like where are the places that we want to build our next settlement. They send out the, violent fringe youth who go and they terrorize Palestinians, and at a certain point maybe they chase them off the land, and then the good settlers come in and start to build a good settlement, and then the state comes behind them and authorizes it. And so this like whole thing of condemning the violent settlers and the military claiming they're cracking down on them, and Netanyahu, like it's all part of this machine where they have to act like they're doing something about it. It sort of lets the tension out of the system, but it is quite literally the tip of the spear in the settlement movement. This is how they get new land that they then build settlements on. And so the thing that happened at the synagogue, if you look at the website of that organization, they present the respectable settlements. They, first of all, they just say they are part of Israel. They don't even distinguish between Israel and the occupied West Bank, but they paint this picture of these like really beautiful, well-run towns. And people who defend this say, these people are not connected to the violent settlers. But if you are supporting that organization, then you are, by definition, supporting the violence. And so I think that, to the extent that liberal Zionism is a real concept, I find it shocking that these people would associate with an organization that supports this movement. And the fact that there's not been more outrage among these ostensible liberal Zionists shows that at the very least, they are completely okay with the violent settler movement, which enables them to, to build these respectable, beautiful settlements that are ethnically cleansing the West Bank.
And we should say that the so-called good settlers in this instance are also illicit. Like these settlements are not legal. So it is it's a little bit overused, but the Overton window just gets pushed further and further. Literally, they're dealing with a literal Overton window in the sense that they just keep creeping and essentially occupying illegally more and more space in the West Bank. But this dynamic, I should say, too, is also we see it in play with, I have a problem with this government, the Israeli government, as if, Netanyahu, who's been in power now more or less for 20 years, is some type of abnormality or, deviation from some other imagined trajectory that Israel is on. I think even in the context of the United States, I think we can understand this, that Donald Trump is not, was not dropped from the sky by an alien spaceship. He is a function of American society and indicative of a serious problem that America has. And Netanyahu has been, double the amount of time that Donald Trump is there. And they don't operate in an all or nothing political climate. They build coalitions. So there is more durability and depth to the support for a prime minister there than we would have in in our system. There's no good / bad apples here. It is like, this is all part of a whole.
It's a simple fact that the settlement project in the West Bank, which is fundamentally a project of ethnic cleansing, is one of, if not the most consistent state project of Israel for the last, at least since 1967. And it is true, as you say, like figures like Netanyahu, obviously Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, like these guys are, in the case of Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, they are settlers. In the case of Netanyahu, he is, allied himself with them. They are pushing it forward, but there's just simply never been a meaningful effort to dismantle the settlement movement. And the point I make in that piece is there are absolutely people in Israel, politicians in Israel, who oppose the settlement movement. They do not want to see the settlement building accelerating. They think it's like a threat to security in Israel. They think it's causing them problems. They believe in, the 48 lines, but there's no actual movement to extract the settlers from the West Bank and to dismantle the settlement movement. And unless you do that, you are for the settlement movement. Because what we see is that it's a movement that has to keep growing. It is fundamentally always growing, always looking for new places to settle. I mean, that's why they call it the settlement movement. And so, like people like to, I think the discourse gets flattened a lot on the internet, the way, especially like some anti-Zionist folks who like to say like they're all the same. The liberal Zionists, the settlers, the right wing, the left wing, like they're all the same. I mean, it's not true. Like they do have lots of political differences, but at the end of the day, they're all part of this same project. Unless the ostensible left wing in Israel is willing to actively dismantle the settlement movement, to remove the 750,000 settlers in East Jerusalem and the West Bank, then they're part of the settlement project. And that's just, it's not happening. So, I mean, we saw in, 2005, they had to get like a couple thousand settlers out of Gaza, and it was like almost caused a civil war.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jasper, really appreciate you coming and updating us on these different stories that you were pursuing while you were there. Again, we will link to Infinite Jazz on Substack. Really appreciate the reporting you're doing. It is, we've talked about it. It's shocking, the sort of dearth of reporting that comes out of the West Bank. And there's so much talk, discussion about the West Bank and about these things, and so little reporting. Because I want to remind people, Israel is preventing journalists from going into Gaza, but ostensibly is not doing so the same for West Bank. And to the extent that there are correspondents from major news outlets in Tel Aviv, aside from the checkpoints and whatnot, as the crow flies, you're talking not hours, but minutes, really, to get to the West Bank.
You can land at Ben Gurion and be in the West Bank in like an hour.
I mean, it's easier than getting, from here to LaGuardia airport, essentially. And yet we don't see that reporting. And the absence of that reporting in and of itself, I think, is very telling. But Jasper, that's why I'm so grateful of the work you're doing and appreciate you coming on and talking to us about it.
Yeah, thanks, Sam and Emma. Great to see you both.
Thanks so much.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, head into the fun half of the program. Listen, we want to hear from you about best ofs. Mm-hmm. This is it. There's a couple of days left, and then we shut the door. I'm not kidding. Email us at majorityreporters@gmail.com. Write in the words best of in the subject line and tell us which episode of the year. Maybe you have 4 episodes that you think were the best of. Maybe you have 6. If you get up in around 10, there'd be a problem. But send us your suggestions, and they will. And just a reminder, November and December of last year are eligible, but not necessarily this year. So majorityreporters@gmail.com. Tell us what you want for the best ofs. Illuminati Kid says the Majority Report is completely lost that identity. Sam used the word dearth correctly. Oh. Okay. I've used the word dearth correctly in the past. I just want to say we haven't changed around here. Also, if you want to support the program, join themajorityreport.com. Also, justcoffee.coop. Head over now. Use the coupon code majority, and this month you'll get 30% off. 30% off. Now is the time to check out those Just Coffee flavors that you want to try out. If you've never tried Just Coffee before, now is the time to do it. And do it quick, because if you're quick, maybe you get the opportunity to buy a bunch as gifts for people. Also, it's a great gift, particularly now, because coffee, Just Coffee is a co-op, so they keep their prices under control. But coffee across the board, super pricey.
Yep.
So check it out. Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leck podcast universe?
Yeah, live in 77 minutes. Left Reckoning episode 248. Jesus, we're almost at 250. You want to put this up for me, Brian? This is me
getting
and
Thomas Pynchon on.
I wish.
Oh my God, how young he is.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
only interview he's ever done.
He's had a little bit of work done.
He maybe talked to Paul Thomas Anderson, and we're still not even sure about that.
No, I think like that's the Illuminati for me, is if Pynchon gives me like a dinner invite.
Oh my God.
But yeah, we're talking about his new book, The Shadow Ticket, which is my favorite novel that I've read in half a decade. About a private eye. It's sort of a noir based in at the end of Prohibition, in the rise of the Nazis. Starts in Michigan, ends up over in Hungary and the Mediterranean. A great book. I talked to Devin about it for about 45 minutes. So this will be on in about 75 minutes.
Cool.
All right. Quick break. Fun half.